Okay, we are going to immediately go into a non-public session. Um, uh, and could you please, make the motion, Alan, for negotiations?
Yep. I move that we go into non-public.
Doug?
Krista. Liz.
Alan.
Janine? Okay, we are now in non-public. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to the next item in our agenda, the points of pride. Superintendent?
So DCS was excited to begin their second annual One School, One Book program. This program seeks to build community and literacy by encouraging our whole school to read the same book at the same time across all grade levels. This builds excitement for reading, as well as brings together students from grades K through 4, as they were able to chat about what they're reading. They have chosen the chapter book Mr. Popper's Penguins by Richard and Florence Atwater. And at HES, in celebration of Martin Luther King Day, HES students, along with some high school students, created beautiful artwork that included a mural. And they did this on Monday in Hancock. The students are looking forward to another visit from Coffee, the therapy dog. Children have the opportunity to read to this special companion. And just a aside on the Martin Luther King Day Jr., the theme for the posters or the mural or the artwork was I have a dream. And those are our points of pride today.
Yes, Stephen, go ahead. Oh. Well, congratulations. Okay, and the next that brings us to our first period of public comment. Is there anyone in our audience that would like to make a comment to the school board? Oh, okay, thank you very much. Then we will move on to the consent agenda, acceptance of the school board minutes, and I don't believe, is there anything on personnel? Nothing on personnel, so it is simply the school board meeting minutes. Does anybody have any changes to the minutes? Jim?
I'm wondering whether we should bother to make sure that the minutes reflect the actual numbers, not our discussion last month.
Okay,
Because they are confusing. If somebody takes a look at those, it was a confusing situation in the room, and it'll be a confusing situation if somebody who wasn't in the room.
okay, would you like to work with Lori and Brenda to make sure we have the right numbers in there then? Okay,
We'll take care of it somewhat.
okay.
I just think it's something we ought to reflect in minutes.
Okay, thank you, Jim. So we'll accept the minutes as amended.
So what do we do then procedurally? Bring it back next month for the amendment, or?
You should bring them back because it sounds
That's
like
right.
the changes might be substantive.
Okay,
Well, they're going to reflect what the.
Great. So then you're going to want to bring them back
Yes,
next
ma'am.
time.
okay. Okay, and then that brings us to the superintendent's report and presentation of business.
Great. Thank you so much. So we have some things in your packet for you. You have January 1 enrollment and our monthly events calendar. I do want to start by just saying we have 4 outstanding school board requests: the audit presentation, an SRO presentation, the therapy dog presentation, and some ESSER dollar information. I was wondering if the person looking for the ESSER dollar information could please touch base with Lori and Jim at the end, because it was on Jim's spreadsheet. So that would be great. And then happy to send that back out to everyone at the end, once that discussion happens. So this is the 17th of January. I'm not really sure where the rest of January went. And I'm looking to see if there's anything additional this week that needs to be added to the agenda. I mean, the calendar. How about next week, the week of the 23rd? And moving into February, our deliberative session is on the 7th, which is also my birthday. And so the week of the 6th, anything additional the week of the 6th? The week of the 13th? And the week of the 20th? Okay, so that is the monthly calendar.
Do we want to start putting the building committee meetings on here?
Yeah, if you could send those to Brenda, that would be great.
Third Wednesday of every month
Third Wednesday of every.
Third Wednesday of every month
at 1 o'clock,
at 1 o'clock.
starting tomorrow.
And you're also gonna, Alan, want to send your meetings to Brenda to make sure that they get posted.
The planning.
The strategic organization,
That's what we've done.
great. Can you add them to this,
Yeah,
Brenda?
okay.
Yep, Strategic Organizational Planning Committee. Here.
And your bill, yours is here as well? Yeah, FAU, okay. All right.
You can see enrollment as of January 1st. Happy to answer any questions about enrollment. And then I am going to actually turn it over to Dr. Forrest and Ms. Coates to talk about the preschool indicators. So if you wow, I'm having a lot of trouble talking today. If you recall, last year we committed to developing and providing information specific to the success of the preschool program. Obviously, we're still in the first year, so we want to make sure we have those indicators ready. And if you have questions on them, that you're able to ask them now as we move forward. So, Dr. Forrest? Yep, your information is in the purple folders. That also was it was also on the board drive.
Yeah.
Carrie, I'll start and then by all means jump in. So we uploaded information to the school board drive and it's in your purple folder. If you go to the table, when we thought about how are we going to evaluate the program and measure success, we really looked at 3 different categories tied to what we are trying to accomplish. So one being we want to increase access to the pre-K program. We want to make sure that we're delivering a high quality preschool program, and we want to increase kindergarten preparedness. And then we shared a table with the different measures that we'll be collecting data on related to each of those 3 areas. So under access, we're looking at student enrollment, our wait list, barriers, keeping track of barriers that parents are sharing with us, outreach and family engagement, which really will have a dual of access, but will also be telling us about the quality of programming. Also under quality of programming, we'll be looking at educators' credentials and years of experience. We'll look at the class size and teacher to student ratio. And we'll be looking at measuring the social and emotional learning competencies that we've adopted from CASEL. We'll also be looking at students' performance related to the New Hampshire Early Learning Standards. And then for kindergarten preparedness, we'll be looking at our AIMSweb and our math assessments that we do right at the beginning of kindergarten, as well as we also do a kindergarten screener using the DIAL assessment, which has a number of different areas that it looks at. So it will give us a more well-rounded look at students' preparedness for kindergarten. And that's what we have put together so far, or to date, to measure specifically. Carrie, sorry, did I?
Nice job, Ian.
We're happy to answer any questions that you have.
I have a question. So these look great. Thank you very much. So when will we get this first data? When will the first time we'll be able to look at this data and kind of know what's going on? Will it be September of 23, 24 year, like next September, or would it be the following year?
Well, so some of the data we're already collecting and have.
Yeah.
And then some of the data we have to think about systematically how we're going to exactly what we're going to pull from the data and set up systems to do that. And I'm thinking specifically about the social emotional learning competencies as well as the New Hampshire Learning Standards and the kindergarten screener, the dial assessment. And we should have those by the beginning of fall next year. So we'll have all like a complete set of data by fall 2023.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay. Thank you so much. Do we have any more
That's all for
school board requests?
is, I already talked about those.
Okay.
And,
All right. But that was,
that's all I have for you
okay.
tonight.
All right. That takes us to reports. Catherine Craig, our student representative, is not here tonight. Do we have a teacher? I'm sorry, what? Oh, okay, great, great. Do we have a teacher representative? Okay, so we will move on to the food service committee. Mr. Dunning?
We met with Fresh Picks a week ago Monday, and as you have seen in the information we sent forward, they are coming forward with a proposal, but they want our board's permission to move forward with this proposal and looking at a different way of delivering the food from SMS to the satellite schools, which is really all the small schools. So their plan is to prepare a package, and I brought just a sample here, that's sealed. The meal for the day is prepared, placed in the container, sealed, put either a cold or a warmer, shipped to the school. Once at the school, it is distributed to the students there. They want to start piloting that, then get back to us with a long-term plan for both the students, the community, and the board. It's a better quality food because it's kept warmer and fresher. It eliminates having to have food distributed from a container onto a plate at the school. That's a staff savings. It would require fewer vans, so instead of having 3 vans, which we purchased, we'll be down to 2, less maintenance. There will be staff reduction, but there really won't be staff reduction because they can't fill all the positions now, so this would be a win-win for all of us around that. Ideally, at some point when we have it up and running, and that requires some software transfers and changes, a family will be able to go online, pick their meals. The meals will go to a central location, SMS. They'll know what to send to each of the schools. That'll come up, they'll prepare the meals, put it on the container, label it, and it'll be shipped off to the school where there'll be an individual that will help distribute the food. That's down the road. Right now, they just want to pilot some of this to see how it works. I think it's a great idea. I was there today. They have a single machine. Depending upon the meal, there are different containers. So there's a different form it sits in, and they seal it. My thought after talking with the manager, it would probably make sense to say to Fresh Picks, we got to look at 2 machines. One that could seal a hot meal, one that could seal a cool meal, because they may come in different containers. If not, it's the same container, then it speeds up the service. They serve somewhere between 150 to 200 meals out of SMS to the satellite schools. So I would encourage the board to give them the go-ahead and continue with the plan and come back with us with a formalized plan. Ultimately, we're looking at possibility of $65,000 savings, but let's just see how it works its way out. So that's the first piece. So I'd like the board to give the authority to Fresh Picks to move forward with this initiative. So my motion is to give Fresh Picks the authority to move forward with their plan as outlined in the document that I gave you.
Second.
Okay. The second thing to share with you is where we are financially. Obviously, I don't think there's a single location where food service runs in the profit zone. And we certainly aren't one either. Presently, we are, actual expenditures to date is $138,604, and we budgeted $81,200. It's still early. We still could have an increase in revenue, so we'll wait to see. At this point, I'm not overly nervous that we'll have an issue, but it's just bring it to your attention that we need to watch this closely. We do have funds set aside to cover whatever loss there is that we're responsible for. That will never be anything that if it goes over what we're responsible for, that we will have to consume as a board, unless we change something, which we wouldn't do because that wouldn't make sense to do that. So presently, I think we're okay. We'll see what next month's revenue brings into us, and then we'll get back to you again whether we need to look at anything further around financially, looking at things differently. But I think we're okay now. So, any questions?
Liz?
I don't know if you want to talk about this now or when we have the board vote, but I was just curious if they told you about what the packaging is made of or anything like that, how environmentally friendly it is, whether we're causing more waste, all that kind of stuff.
Good question. This is certainly a paper product. I can feel that. I don't know about the shrink on the top, but it's a good question that we can ask. I'm not sure what they serve in the schools, whether it's this kind of material or not, but it's a good question we can ask.
Thank you.
Okay, the next report is from Jim Frederickson on budget and property.
So I issued the committee meeting report over the weekend, and it highlights a lot of discussion, but there's really nothing new to report basically on a lot of things. The only thing of significance is the fact that tomorrow at 1 o'clock here in this room, we'll have our first building committee meeting. We did have another member of the public added to the group, and that would be Kevin. Once he's not a board member, he's going to join us tomorrow, but he'll be a member of the public after his board term is over. And I think the only other thing that may be worth mentioning is the fact that there was a discussion of the Conville swim team. I think Kimberly's already addressed that in the package, and I can't think of anything else that's really significant to report.
All right, thank you, Jim. Next is Policy Committee. Krista?
Last meeting, we discussed quite a few of budget items, or policies, I should say, that we had given to Catherine and Lori in Budget and Property. They came back to us revised, and we went ahead and we're sending those actually to a first read. So if you go down to new business, you will see that those are in a first read. What? No, go.
So inadvertently, a different copy, our original policy was included in the packet, not the revised copies. And in our purple folder, I'm seeing one policy, so I would ask that we just hold off because they're kind of a package deal and make sure that everything is correct before we move forward, because we don't have the correct version in our packet or in the purple folder. I'm not sure what happened. We'll make sure that gets taken care of. There's a lot of versions out there, so.
Yeah, because we went with the version that was in the drive. It says draft across it. Well, we can discuss that. How about that?
Okay, Stephen?
In the version we got in the purple folder, the second sentence, is reference to contract in the amount of $250,000.
So no, we're aligning our policies with federal requirements, and there's two policies that go together, and we only have one in the purple folder. That's why I'm saying that it, but the other
That's the
one
correct
is,
amount.
the other one is not in there, so we should have them together, so everyone understands all the parameters around the changes that we're making. It's very important that the public and the board understand that the internal controls and the fiduciary responsibility, when you combine the two policies, will be more than sufficient and even have greater internal controls than what we currently have in our policy. So I think it's important that they come together in their corrected state. So I'm asking that they be pulled when it comes time.
Oh, we can just do that now. We could just pull those two now and not have them as a first read, because we do have the copies, policy to get those. We'll figure it out and get them back on for next time. So then, we also discussed, which I'll just jump to that one too, is the, KEC, IJL, and IGE, which is a consideration of instructional material and education media, library collection development, and library collections. We're moving that to first read. We did do some more discussion on that based on the information that we got back from the library media specialists. So they did a lot of work and a lot of editing, and we decided, based on the information that they gave us, that that could move to a first read. So that one's going to go as well. We had another discussion on dress code, JICA, which again, we had it again tonight. So this is an ongoing topic that is still not resolved, and we will continue that topic probably for a couple more meetings. And that's it for now.
Thank you, Krista.
Yeah.
And we have an update on the March Community Forum from Alan.
Okay, it is definitely set for March 6th. The 4 people who are presenting, I want to thank them very much for being flexible in their schedules and being able to have it on March 6th. And that's a Monday. You okay with that? You're looking at me like a little. Okay, I'm fine with that. Yes. There are 4 presentations, and this will be the sequence of them. The first one is the layman's view of the budget, and that'll be done by Elizabeth, or Liz, as we like to call her. The second one will be the administration budget process, and that'll be by our superintendent. The third one will be the proposed budget and warrant articles, and that will be by Catherine. And the fourth one is the budget process and the 2022 final tax bills, and that'll be by Jim. Okay, now, the only thing we've changed is on how the Q&As are going to be done, and they're going to be after the second one and the fourth one. But, no, I'm sorry, apologize. There is another thing that we have to deal with, is that we need somebody to volunteer to be a moderator. Okay. What we are doing is changing the moderator. Instead of just having one person, we have 2 people, one for the online and one for the in-house questions and Q&As. But we do not have a moderator for the in-house. Okay. I'm sorry,
Doug. Yeah.
you want to do it, Doug? You
We'd
got
like
it?
everybody to have a chance.
I won't say who deserted us on being the moderator.
Don't you need to know?
Well, Liz, I'm sorry, Liz is
Oh,
going
Liz is
to
gonna
be the
do it. Oh,
online,
okay.
Doug will be the in-house. Everything else is set, we'll start getting the communications done and everything else like that, so thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. And that brings us to the legislative update under old business.
I have narrowed the 215 LSRs that could impact education to 137 that I am following. I want to bring a couple things to your attention. Please know that I look at this on Fridays to try and update it for Tuesday. But there could, like Catherine may have information from today or the last that I don't have. So this one is something that sounds like it is getting killed, and that's HB 51. And that is relative to school districts and towns who have to use warrant articles for lobbying agents. And while that sounds innocuous, that would mean that you couldn't belong to the New Hampshire School Boards Association. So I believe Catherine mentioned that that's not going to make it.
We're hoping it's not going to make it. And it would require a warrant article for every lobbying group. So we have teachers, we have administrators. There could be all sorts of other professional organizations that some of our professionals are involved in tangentially, perhaps, with social services. That any nonprofit that we give to that does any type of lobbying would have to be in a separate warrant article voted by the district. So it is a concern. It continues to be a concern. There's a bill filed almost every year, some version of this legislation. So we're hoping we can kill it. But if you want to talk to your local representatives at the Senate or at the House, it certainly doesn't hurt. Because it's important that everyone have a voice when they go to Concord. What this doesn't do is preclude private industry from having lobbyists. So utilities, pharma, oil, and gas, for example. So again, it's important that everyone have a voice in Concord when they're deciding on legislation that impacts the state.
So there are two bills related to school building and school building aid. They are HB 332 and HB 452. So I'm keeping my eye on those. HB 313 is regarding the default budget. It's a little confusing, so I've been kind of waiting to see where that's going to go.
So this bill would require that, in addition to the legal calculation we do for default budgeting, that we reduce, let me start by saying the default budget, the purpose of the default is to freeze the previous year's budget approved by the legislative body, so the voter approved budget, to freeze it in time, minus some one-time expenses, but adding back in any contractual or legal obligations. That's the formula under statute. It is not about the purpose. It is about the dollar amount in the line that it freezes. So the default budget proposal in this bill would have us have to reduce the default, the prior year's budget, by any position that was filled by, they like to word it as maybe a junior person. So we had a teacher who'd been with us for 35 years and they retired at this amount, and we hire a younger person and they cost less money. They want us to go back in time and reduce the default by that amount. What it doesn't allow us to do is add in proposed positions, for example, back into the default in the event of a default. I think this bill, when again is grafting together multiple budgets, it's not really freezing a line per se. And the default budget does allow the governing body transfer authority. So if it passes, of course, we get to reallocate the funds as we get the presentation every year, as we need to, in order to run the district in the event of a default. The other concern is that it has it happening up until the time of the public hearing. So we all know the way school districts especially run, that teachers' contracts start in April. So we know some of this information, but to go back in time on a previous year's budget, we're in a budget right now. We're not even going to know that number. So I'm not really sure how effective it is. The goal of most default budget legislation is so that the default can never be higher than the proposed budget. However, it is possible that if there's a bond issue, a collective bargaining agreement, there are legal cases where you have a major legal obligation, the default could end up higher than the proposed budget. So this is an attempt to further reduce the default So it's lower than the proposed, and perhaps with the hope that the proposed budget fails. So I think we all, again, should talk to our legislators, because especially in school districts, that's a very fluid, those salary lines can be somewhat fluid. We do hire at very specific times of the year typically, correct? I mean, we kind of have this hiring window for the start of the school year, and it could really become problematic because it's always going to be almost 2 budgets back, causing the default budget calculation to be artificially low in my estimation. So that's that, Bill. Yay.
So one of the ones that we should be paying particular attention to is HB 394, which is relative to the organization of cooperative school boards. This is an interesting bill that would have you not being able to have somebody from the same town, if I understood it correctly, although they use the word district, which is problematic through some of these co-op bills that I'm going to talk about, be officers twice. So for instance, say Janine said, I don't want to be the chair anymore. Greg would automatically not be able to be the chair because he was from Peterborough. So while that might be the thing, I'm not really sure that the state should be dictating how you organize yourself. I have a whole list here of things. I guess I would look to you to tell me how you best want me to communicate. There are several unfunded mandates. One of them is relative to the adoption of the school administrative unit budget, which is very interesting, and there's several of those. HB 563, looking, and this is really, I think the intent of this bill was to look at multi-district SAUs, but that's not how they phrased it. And it is looking to completely separate out the SAU budget from the school district budget, which in Conval is difficult because it's the same. And I don't know that they understand quite the cost associated with doing those two things, and the additional staff that would be necessary to accomplish that. So that's something to keep our eyes on. There are several things relative to the cooperative school district and leaving a cooperative school district. Increasing chartered public school per pupil funding is HB 272, looking to increase their funding, which is interesting. I wonder if that's about not being adequately funded. Anyway, there's also maybe more concerning HB 71, is repealing a Department of Education report on chartered public school funding. And so the DOE would no longer be required to report out about those dollars, if I'm understanding the bill correctly, which maybe I'm not. But those are tax dollars, so that is a concern. And repealing a requirement for a report on chartered public school payments, which, by the way, was SB 25, and that was OTP'd on the 10th. So that's SB 25. So, and actually one of the sponsors is Ruth Ward, who is one of our representatives, or actually our senator. There is unfunded mandates, particularly around instruction, one requiring instruction on the nature of communism, one to teaching on discrimination in public schools and public workplaces. This is where most of the unfunded mandates relative to screening and intervention in public school for dyslexia and related disorders. Having read that one, that actually has a hearing tomorrow. There's one that we do want to support, and that is the relative to transportation for students attending career and technical ed, which has a hearing tomorrow. This aims to provide us with full reimbursement for that transportation. So that is something that you want to think about. I'm going to kind of go over these. There are several on the 19th, which you may want to consider whether or not you want me to be actually in Concord on the 19th. One is about accelerated graduation from high school. That's HB 399. That would allow students as young as 13 to be able to take a test designed by the Department of Education to get a the high school equivalency diploma. We have programs in place for students to do that. Not really sure that 13 is appropriate age for that. It's up to you. Minimum hourly wage is up on here. Also, employee protections for COVID in the workplace, which some of these would again be unfunded mandates. I'm trying to go through them. My question to you is really, there's so much here that is important for you to be paying attention to. I'm not sure that my 5 or 10 minutes or this is the best delivery method for this. How would you like to receive this information so that you guys can discuss it in a way to make decisions on if you want to send me to testify, send a board member to testify, send testimony. I'm looking to you. I can keep going. It's not good.
Might that be something that would be good for the communications committee to discuss tomorrow night or Thursday night?
Well, I always create my own notes. I guess what I'm trying to do is ask you is what type of document do you want from me? Well, no, I'm not going to give you my notes. No, these are my personal notes. No, these are my personal notes. 137. Yes, those are like on page 18. I haven't gotten there yet. So, another one that you really need to pay very close attention to, somebody probably needs to testify from this board, HB 103. As written, it would eliminate actually only 2 board members right now. 3? So because you couldn't be related to anyone that worked here. So that one, I'm sorry, that just doesn't work for a 250 square mile rural district. So that's definitely one that you're going to want to think about. One of the ones that I'm concerned about, mostly because of time, but also because of some of the right to know requests that I'm getting, HB 149. So many of the requests I'm getting are not from like people who are looking to get information. They're actually from vendor services. I'm not really sure that that's the intent of the right to know. Okay, so again, how would you like me to best?
Can I make a suggestion? So there are several organizations that do spreadsheets. They'll do a listing, and then there's there's categories of information, and you could mark them as like the most that we should, how important they are to us, and then once we see the spreadsheet, we could figure out like which ones we need to testify or enter a vote. Catherine?
So yes, we get that from the NHSBA, and Kimberly would get that from her organization as well as the administrators and principals. I think
That's where I
because,
start.
yeah, that's where she starts, and it's still hundreds of bills long. I think because this is my day job, it moves very quickly. So
day
we'll
job.
find out on Friday that you might need to be in testimony on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would ask Kimberly to do is the school board, it's appropriate to have it either go to communications or come to the full board if it's kind of a cooperative school district issue, and there's a few more out there that we haven't discussed. However, I think there's going to be bills that might be more educationally based that Kimberly would testify at, not necessarily a board member, not that we're precluded from it. So perhaps she should come up with a list of her top, very hard to whittle down, I'm not gonna say a number, 5, 10, 20, 30, 50. And then we can approve you, so you can either go or submit testimony on our behalf, because there isn't time for it to get
Right.
back to the board in 2 weeks. The hearings
right.
will be over and they're execing bills, or they're holding their executive session, in some cases immediately following the bill, which means you have very little chance outside that public hearing, if you didn't advocate before, to advocate then, and then they're making a decision to send it to the floor of the full House or the full Senate at the next full session. So,
In the past, I worked with the board chair to do that. I don't have
So that,
any, I
again,
just,
that might be a great solution for the bills that
Right.
come up that are more educationally relevant, or unfunded mandates that we need to take more action on. If the chair and vice chair, when you can have your discussions, but I think we need to give Kimberly some latitude to testify if we want to make an impact in Concord, because we won't have time to come back in 2 weeks.
and I don't,
I mean, I'm testifying 58 times this week.
so and I appreciate that, Catherine. My concern is greater that some of these bills really need the voice of board members. And that's where I'm, like, I'm, I'm pretty, first of all, if I'm being 100% honest, I don't really love to testify. I don't really like, even though I'm close to Concord, it's not, some of my colleagues really like to do that. And I really like to hold back to see what that final version of the bill is going to be before I talk about it, and put my 2 cents in there, because when I speak, I use Conval's voice, or maybe I am Conval's voice, and so I'm pretty careful when I use that. But I am concerned that there are a lot of bills in here that need, like, I'm going to pick on, is it okay to pick on you, Dick? Like, they need Dick Dunning to run up to Concord on Thursday, not really this Thursday, but to say, as a representative, as a member of the Conval School Board, I'm concerned about this. And in order to do that, I need to get this information out to you very quickly, and you guys need to be kind of looking at it. And I'm happy to prioritize them and say, here are the ones that I'm really concerned about for Conval. But these are, the education ones, I'm pretty comfortable saying, like, this is an unfunded mandate. There's like 25 of them in here, unfunded mandates. But what I'm less comfortable on is things that, like, the one about the one I just mentioned, HB 103, which is,
That's a school board issue.
exactly, that's a school board issue. I think for us, though, that's a huge school board issue. To not be able to have certain people serve simply because their daughter or their parent or their wife is a member of the staff, that just doesn't work here. So, I mean, there's been years that's been as many as 5 members of this board who have had relatives.
So what is your suggestion? Would you like, do you want to prioritize them for us? And maybe, give me a list of like those issues that need a board member to testify, those issues that you're gonna testify for? Liz?
I was really trying to make it fun for you. So what if you put like your top 10 biggest issues in a shared Google Doc and send it out to us along with the dates that you would like to have board members present in Concord, if that's possible. I don't know how they
just-
determine that.
So that, I think though, we have to go one step back, that we, as a 13, have to agree that's an issue that we want to
Yes,
take on
totally get that.
first. And I think that's where we're
I'm getting it.
coming into a
Yes,
timing issue.
yeah.
Right, exactly, thank you.
Yeah.
And then the whatever document is shared between us has to be available to public, correct? No?
Yes.
Yes.
As
Yeah.
soon as it goes to a
That's
forum
why
of the
I'm
board.
not giving you, these are my notes.
Yes, your notes, noted. But if we did a shared doc, it could be available and could we make comments on said document? And have a,
Well, we could simply say,
yes
we
or no?
agree, yes, no,
Yay,
right, and
nay.
it is, of course, a public document, yes, once we're
You
commenting.
cannot
on it,
vote, though.
But we
Cannot
can't
vote, no,
Can't vote.
just a consensus.
A consensus. Yep, that's correct.
And then determining the dates and availability of various board members.
Notice when she said availability, she looked right at you.
Well, I'm looking at the people who are retired over
I-
it.
And I just need to know what format you will find that to be the easiest and that you can commit to looking at it pretty much once a day, every other day. Because it happens that fast right now.
Yeah, so every Friday, the schedules will come out. Some of us who have, software tells us a little bit sooner if they get scheduled, but it's not always a lot of notice. That's just how they make their calendars. That's not new. That's just the way it's been. We have a lot of bills to hear. So I think the shared drive would be effective, and I think you putting together, I can't say how many is your top priority, but would be the best and most effective use of everybody's time. Okay. There are a few other bills to point out that are important that maybe we could agree on tonight, such as the state reinstating, not a one-time payment, but reinstating the contribution of the retirement system at 7.5%, which is not the 35 we used to get, but we did get a couple $100,000 from that legislation last year, and this would reinstate that permanently. So I think that's something maybe we could take consensus on and send in the letter. Another one is a bill that uses state surplus after the stabilization or the rainy day fund is funded at 75, using 75% of excess to fund the UAL, which is the unfunded liability, the OPEB liability associated with the retirement system, which makes up 75% of the employer contribution rate. So the faster we pay down the unfunded liability, which is out to 2039, it's like paying interest early on your home, the cheaper it gets. And the faster it's done, and our rates would go down. So that's another bill that maybe we could, because that's easy, we could have consensus and maybe vote on that tonight so that we can move forward with supporting those bills. Those are easier. HB 50 and 555. And then another bill to be interested in would be HB 427. It's going to talk about more requirements for public meetings, including a designated time period for questions and answers, and allow the attendee to demand, this is the language of the law, this is not my language, demand the statute or administrative rule giving us the authority to make that policy decision or operational procedure. So you'd have to essentially have your attorney present at all board meetings.
What's the number there, Catherine?
427
HB?
HB.
And that actually is a big question on whether or not you would need your attorney, like, here.
I'm pretty
all.
sure you would need your
Like-
attorney here, because no one would know all those rules off the top of their head.
Not even the attorney.
And then there's one that cooperative school districts would need to have a board meeting rotating in every town that they represent, which certainly is possible. But with technology and being able to live stream and some of the other stuff, there's another one that would require us to
Wireless.
live stream everything, which we're already doing. So that's fantastic that we're ahead of the curve there. Everything, yeah, everything. But we have the technology here in this room unless we need to have the mandated roadshow. So,
Yep.
yeah, there's quite a few bills related to both school boards and certainly our priority being education, and the students themselves. And the freedom accounts, there's quite a few that rein them in, expand them, put guidelines around them, allowing monies to go to other schools outside of charter schools, such as religious organizations. So there's just a lot of school bills this session. So there's more bills filed than any other session so far in New Hampshire state history, especially in an election year. So that should be telling that there's just going to be more bills, more legislation to deal with.
Things that I probably need to, and there's like,
Okay. So we'll look forward to getting those lists. And Dick going to Concord. Dick?
you're gonna go with me, right?
So writing a letter. Do we need to vote on it? Okay, so, who is writing the letter? Okay, all right, so I'm writing the letter as the chair, okay. All right, okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the chair to write a letter supporting HB 50 pertaining to, I think that was the one that made the retirement system payment permanent.
Second?
Okay, all in favor? Krista? Okay, and I will entertain a motion to approve the chair to write a letter of support for HB, I think it was 555, on reducing the back payment on the what? The unfunded liability for the retirement system, which will reduce our payments in the future. Okay? Okay, Brenda?
Second?
All in favor? Did you get that, Brenda? Okay, 427?
Well, I just gonna go to the hearings. Well, 427 we could do, yes, that's fine, yep.
Okay, Kimberly?
Can I ask, just a board consensus, would you want me to, anything that would be considered an unfunded mandate? Which, do you want to be that general? As,
You could,
like, that would be helpful to me, like,
Okay, okay, you're gonna, Catherine, wait a minute. Okay, Greg, can you just hold on to that for a second? Catherine?
I would suggest that unfunded mandates, we at minimum sign in opposed, because you can do that online.
Okay. Okay, so are we going to approve, should the chair do that, or should the,
I can send to you directions on how you would do that. Each of you has the ability to sign in.
okay, yeah, and it is very easy. You can just sign in on the morning, I think it's the morning of the hearing, isn't it? And they allow you to either yay or
Do
nay.
it before.
Uh,
even
very
before
easy.
then. Once
Okay.
once the hearing's scheduled, you can do it.
Once the hearing's scheduled. Okay, so we don't really need a vote on that because we're all gonna go in, but we need a list of when
Yep, I
they
got it.
are posted or what the numbers are. Jim?
First I've heard of that procedure. Is that just for unfunded mandates?
No, it's for
Any
every
legislation.
bill.
Would you like? Yeah.
Yep, you can just vote A or nay, you can write a letter, you can go down and testify in person.
And there are, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to lengthen this out. There are some unfunded mandates. I just want to be clear that we generally would support. For instance, there is a salary floor, HB. Nope, it's still just our L and LSR. There's no text yet, related to public school teachers to have a salary floor. Well, there should be some sort of salary floor saying no teacher can be paid less than this in the state of New Hampshire. That's a great idea, but it's still an unfunded mandate. So I think until the state starts to step up on the adequacy front, or at least fund some of the unfunded mandates, then we should probably be saying this is an unfunded mandate, even the ones that are a good idea.
And then also, to a lot of the bills that are increasing the eligibility limits on the, education freedom accounts, or, we might want to just weigh in on that as a nay, if somebody's not going down to testify, and for those, bills that are, offering to, build some accountability into the reporting on those, or the spending on those those freedom savings accounts, we might want to weigh in on that too. And if we all do it, that would be very helpful. But I also entertain a motion on, I'm thinking that, House Bill 427, on, the public meetings of the board might be worth a trip to, Concord, because that has the potential to really fundamentally disrupt our board meetings. And especially be very expensive if we have to have a lawyer present. So, maybe, we'll talk about somebody going down and testifying, probably either Dick or I. Yeah, Dick? Okay, so we will testify on that. So do we need to have a board vote in order to send Dick?
If you're if any board member can go individually, they can even say that they're a board member, but you cannot speak for the board unless you vote.
Okay, well, would anybody like to, I'll entertain a motion, to send Dick Dunning down to Concord to testify on, behalf of this school board against House Bill 427.
I'm not, 427 is the meetings moving around.
Oh, 103, okay. Okay, it's House Bill 103. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Tom, Krista? Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. What was the number on that one? No family member?
The family member, that's 103.
That's 103? Oh, which was the one where, it was 427. Okay, so Dick, you're going for 103, testifying against that no family member can be on the board. Then I'd also entertain a motion to, I'll send myself for House Bill 427, about the board meeting, organization and public comment period, and the lawyers being present. Okay, all in favor? Okay, all right. Got to start on that anyway. Do you have more that you would like
I
to?
think I'm gonna figure out a way to put it all together for you.
Okay,
And just try and stay on top of it. Stay on top of this and stay on top of the lawsuit, which It's
It's
a lot of
getting
work
close,
right now.
getting close.
April 10th.
The trial is April 10th, okay. Doug? Correct, correct. If as when you're testifying for the board, any board member can go and testify as a board member, but they're not speaking for the board. In addition, you can write a letter as a board member, and you can go in and you can vote yea or nay on any bill, just online. Okay, so are we all set on the legislation? Okay, so we will move on to new business. We have a first read tonight, as Krista said, KEC IJLIGE on the reconsideration of instructional materials and educational media, library collection development and library collection. And then I think we pulled DJE and DJB in order to clarify exactly what those are and get the right ones out. And then we also have a first read for JLCD, Administration of Education in Schools. So if you have any questions about those two, the first set and then the last policy, please contact Krista. Then we don't have any second reads tonight, but we do have, we'd like to take a board vote. I'll entertain a motion to suspend our policy BBBA, which is board member qualifications. A suspension would allow us to, allow board members to, work as substitute teachers in the district. Catherine?
So I know we suspended this during COVID because we were in a state of
Correct.
emergency, and I do understand that we have currently a shortage of substitutes. However, we just finished talking about HB 103, which is redefining school board member qualifications and wanting to avoid conflicts of interest or the perceived conflict of interest. And the reason why we don't allow this currently is because it creates an inherent, substitute teaching, I realize not a full-time salary, but it's still precluded under our own policy. I'm concerned that suspending this policy sets the example that we're about to testify on a bill that we just waived the policy that we have in place about. Because our current policy has many of the components of the proposed legislation minus being related to someone. So that just concerns me, because that's the point of the legislation, and we're about to send someone to go testify on that. So I understand the position we're in. I just don't think it's really a great idea.
We'd be happy if board members wanted to volunteer to sub.
Yeah. I had questions. I'm not sure I agree with that. BBA says remember this is board member qualifications. To become a candidate for the Conval School Board, a person must be a registered voter. No person holding the office shall at the time hold the office of district moderator, treasurer, or auditor. No person employed on a salaried basis by the Conval School District shall be a Conval board member. And I know that we include the substitute teachers under that umbrella, but I don't think it's the same thing. And I know you're talking about appearances.
I am, and specifically this language of our policy BBBA and RSA 671-18 is the language being amended in House Bill 103 to expand it to outlining more positions and ensuring that no person related by blood or marriage or even stepchildren. So I am concerned because it does create, as a governing body member, an inherent conflict to be both the employed and the governance. And that's why we have this policy in place. And there is legislation that we want to oppose to further that, and we're about to suspend it. I'm finding that very contradictory.
Steve? Yeah, yeah.
With some regularity, principals, administrators, cafeteria workers, sometimes over to,
Yep, they're all nodding. Yep.
real desperation.
Yeah. Yeah, and people, like, when they're in that position, you'll note, like, Dick Dunning always recuses himself whenever it's a vote that has anything to do with, the staffing. There was somebody else Krista. And then there was somebody else that was on the board too, that always recused themselves when it came to voting on any of those issues. So, I'm tired of being intimidated by the legislature. Rich Cahoon. Dick?
Real reservations, certain stuff. What we do next, that we think.
I just don't think it's worth it to go down that slope.
Okay, so, is there a motion on the floor? Does anybody want to make a motion that we suspend this policy? Okay. That's, policy BB. Is there a second? Okay, there's no second to the motion, so, the issue dies.
Proposal, ushers back in the, field trip that our music department, takes to Orlando, Florida. Our student musicians participate in workshops with Disney musicians, and they, of course, perform at Disney. So that is from the 22nd until the 26th of February.
Of 2024?
No,
No, I'm sorry, this,
yeah, that's what it says, 2020.
Well, they have to plan for that, like a year in advance, right?
Yeah. it
no, my
says-
understanding is that this is this February. I know it said, I do understand that, but.
Okay.
Well, Ms. McKillop, could you please clarify whether or not this is for 6 weeks from now or from 2024?
Well,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you because there's other, thank you.
I move that we approve the field trip in light of it being 6 weeks from now, or if it's in 2024. Either way, it's a wonderful program, and I'm excited for our music department to be able to go back to Disney. I know they had a great time the last times that they were able to go, so.
Motion by Catherine, second by Dick. All in favor? Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay. I think it's unanimous. Okay, next we have the expenditure and encumbrance report.
This was included in your packet with explanations. I believe the most significant item of note right now is that we are just starting to receive, electric bills with our new rates. We don't have a full, month yet with the new rates, but we will in the next report that you receive.
So moved. Aye.
For a change. Okay, so please let Fresh Picks, they can go ahead. And now that brings us to a review of our warrant articles.
So on pages 38 and 39 are your warrant articles. Just if we could do the vote on recommends, not recommends first, but then we need to go through on who's going to present these because believe it or not, our next meeting is actually deliberative session.
Okay, so we do these one by one, correct?
That's how I feel, Jim. Yep. So the first is the operating budget.
Yeah, we gotta do
Yeah.
them one by one.
You're moving to recommend or not recommend.
Motion by Jim, second by Greg. All in favor? Any nays? Any abstentions? No. Okay.
Article 2, appropriate to the Building Capital Trust Fund.
Recommend. Okay. Okay, motion by Jim, seconded by Greg. All in favor? Any nays? Any abstentions? It's unanimous. Okay. Okay, motion by Jim, second by Greg. All in favor? Any nays? Any abstentions? Unanimous. Motion by Jim, second by Greg. All in favor? Any nays? Any abstentions? Unanimous. Motion by Jim, second by Greg. All in favor? Any nays? Any abstentions? Unanimous. Okay. Okay. Motion by Jim, second by Greg. All in favor? Any nays? Any abstentions? Unanimous? We're on 7. Motion by Jim, second by Greg. All in favor? Any nays? Any abstentions? Unanimous?
You don't need to do.
No. 8, 9, or 10? We're not doing. Or 4? Oh, okay. Greg is up and he has graciously volunteered to run again, and we are very grateful for that.
So do you want me to go through this?
Okay.
So it's Dr. Ullman. It's the remaining of the Bennington that from when Kira resigned. It's it's Mr. Pops from Francistown. It is Doug, who graciously stepped in, but into the remainder of that term, which started last March.
We're still hoping he'll change his
And
mind.
then Greg's term is actually
I did have a question. Are we live streaming the deliberative session? Do we know yet?
I know we have talked, let me double check. I do not have the answer to that question.
That's fine. And a second question, Janine?
Yes.
We have the.
You, looking at the calendar in your comment, it occurred to me, our next meeting is deliberative session, correct?
Correct.
So policy CM has the school district report that we usually get prior to the deliberative session. So will we get that in our email? Usually we have to approve that. So can we just get a copy before? Policy CM.
The annual report.
Yep.
We couldn't have completed the annual report until you've done the warrant. The annual report is actually,
No, I'm saying, so can we get electronic copy?
you'll get.
Because we
it's-
won't
yes.
before deliberative session.
You will get a copy, as soon as it's finished. If we can do that, sometimes we're picking it up on the way to deliberative session, but it is not actually official until after deliberative session because there could be changes. So the official annual report comes out following deliberative session. That makes sense.
Okay, I'm just reading
Yeah.
the policy,
Yep,
which
yep, totally
doesn't
get it.
quite align. So
Okay,
just
so-
have to modify that.
Hear that, Krista? We need to, we might have to do something about that. Okay, so that brings us to, if we're done with the warrant articles, that brings us to our second period of public comment. And I do not see any members of the public unless one of our staff, our esteemed administrators would like to make a, okay, no. Okay, that brings us to approval of the manifests. Yes. Okay.
All right, so I certify that manifests listed below totaling $1,197,544.08 have been reviewed by me and found to be proper charges against Kentucket Valley School District for goods and or services received and have been properly processed prior to their submittal to the school board.
I move the manifest as presented.
Okay, moved by Dick, seconded by Jim. All in favor? Any nays? Any abstentions? Approved. Okay, and I will now entertain a motion to adjourn, but please, everybody, you have to sign the MS and the warrant articles before you leave. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, everyone.